The control room fell silent as Dr. Myachin stared at the monitor. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her glasses, leaning closer to the screen. What she saw there defied everything she thought she knew about the universe, and about Earth's place in it. "Run the calculation again," she whispered to her colleague, Dr. James Rodriguez. Her voice barely carried across the dimly lit room filled with humming computers and glowing displays. James's fingers flew across the keyboard. The numbers came back identical. His face went pale. "Maya, this can't be right. The trajectory, it's headed straight for us." She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. 3 years of building the Orbital Deep Space Telescope, nicknamed ODST, and this was the first major discovery. But what a discovery it was. An asteroid, previously hidden behind the glare of a distant star, was on a collision course with Earth, and they had less than 18 months to do something about it. The ODST wasn't just any telescope. It was humanity's most ambitious attempt to see deeper into space than ever before. Positioned at the second Lagrange point, nearly 1,000,000 miles from Earth, it had capabilities that made the famous Hubble telescope look like a child's toy. Its mirrors could capture light from the edge of the observable universe. Its sensors could detect temperature variations of a fraction of a degree from billions of miles away. But none of that mattered if humanity didn't survive to use it. Maya stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "We need to call the director. Now!" Within hours, the discovery had reached the highest levels of government. The President of the United States sat in the Situation Room, surrounded by military advisors, scientists, and cabinet members. Maya and James stood at the front, a large screen behind them displaying the asteroid's path in stark, undeniable detail. "How big?" the President asked, her voice steady despite the weight of the question. Maya swallowed hard. 8 miles across, Madam President. Approximately the same size as the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. The room erupted in hushed whispers. The President raised her hand for silence. "And you're certain about the trajectory?" "We confirmed it 17 times, James said. "Multiple observatories have now verified our data. The asteroid, which we're calling Nemesis 7, will impact Earth in approximately 17 months. The most likely impact zone is the North Atlantic Ocean." An admiral leaned forward. "What are we looking at in terms of damage?" Maya pulled up a simulation. The room watched as a blue marble representing Earth spun peacefully, then exploded in a cascade of orange and red as the asteroid struck. Massive tsunamis radiated outward. The impact winter that followed was shown in time-lapse. Clouds of debris blocking out the sun, temperatures plummeting, crops failing worldwide. "Total extinction of human civilization," Maya said quietly. "Possibly the extinction of humanity itself, along with most large animal species. The impact would release energy equivalent to 10 billion Hiroshima bombs. The tsunamis would be over a mile high. The debris cloud would block sunlight for at least 3 years, maybe longer. Nothing would grow. The temperature would drop by 40 degrees Fahrenheit globally within weeks." The President stood and walked to the window overlooking the rose garden. Spring flowers were blooming outside, oblivious to the sword hanging over them. "Options," she said without turning around. "Give me options." Over the next 3 days, the world's brightest minds gathered in secret locations across the globe. The news was kept quiet, for now. Panic would help no one. But every major space agency, every weapons laboratory, every university with advanced physics departments was brought into the fold. 3 plans emerged. The first was nuclear. Launch multiple nuclear warheads at the asteroid and try to deflect it off course. The problem was timing and precision. One miscalculation, and they might just break it into multiple smaller asteroids, all still headed for Earth like cosmic buckshot. The second was a kinetic impactor. Send a spacecraft loaded with heavy materials to collide with the asteroid at high speed, using momentum to nudge it off course. The challenge was that with only 17 months, building and launching such a craft would require miracles of engineering and manufacturing. The third was the most radical, and it came from Maya herself. "We use the ODST as a weapon," she proposed during a video conference with representatives from NASA, ESA, JAXA, and a dozen other agencies. Confusion rippled through the faces on the screen. The telescope? Someone asked. How does a telescope stop an asteroid? Maya pulled up detailed schematics. ODST isn't just a telescope. Its primary mirror is 30 meters across, coated with materials designed to reflect and focus electromagnetic radiation with unprecedented precision. Its power systems can generate an enormous amount of energy. We need that to run the sensors and maintain its position. She paused, letting them process. What if we repurpose it as a solar concentrator? We redirect sunlight from the mirror onto Nemesis 7, not to destroy it. We couldn't do that, but to superheat one side of the asteroid. The heated surface would outgas violently, creating a rocket effect. Over weeks or months, that constant pressure could alter its course just enough to make it miss Earth. The room was silent as everyone absorbed the idea. A Russian physicist spoke up. The precision required would be extraordinary. We need to keep the beam focused on the exact same point as the asteroid tumbles through space. Any deviation. I know, Maya said. That's why we need to modify ODST's guidance systems. Make them faster, more responsive. And we need to install additional power systems, maybe by sending up supplementary satellites to beam energy to ODST. How long would this take? The NASA administrator asked. To modify ODST and get everything in position? For months, minimum. That gives us a 13-month window to alter Nemesis 7's course by just 3,000 miles. Enough to make it miss Earth. Is it possible? The president asked. She had joined the call from the White House. Maya met her eyes through the screen. I don't know, Madam President, but it's the best chance we have. The other plans have maybe a 40% chance of success. This might give us 60%, maybe more. The president nodded slowly. Do it. Whatever resources you need, you have them. Pull people from every space program on Earth if you have to. We're all in this together. And so began the most frantic 4 months in human history. Maya moved into the Johnson Space Center in Houston, sleeping on a cot in her office. James and hundreds of other scientists joined her. The facility became a 24-hour operation. Construction crews worked in shifts building new satellites to boost ODST's power. Programmers rewrote millions of lines of code to make the telescope's aiming systems faster and more precise. Meanwhile, launches began. Planetary science while we still have the chance. Mars is a laboratory for understanding what happens when a planet loses its atmosphere, when climate change runs unchecked, when a world dies. A heated debate erupted in the audience. People stood, shouting questions and opinions. The moderator tried to restore order, but the passion in the room was unstoppable. Dr. Rodriguez jumped back in, his voice cutting through the noise. We're not talking about abandoning Earth. That's a false choice. Mars research helps us understand climate change. The rovers are teaching us about atmospheric evolution, about how planets lose their protective layers. That knowledge could save our planet. A climate scientist named Dr. Aisha Okonkwo stood up, her voice sharp with urgency. I work on climate models every single day. And yes, Mars research provides some useful data. But you know what would help more? Putting those same brilliant minds and that same funding directly into Earth science. We're running out of time. We have maybe 15 to 20 years to prevent catastrophic warming. 15 years. And we're talking about a 40-year Mars program? The math doesn't work. She pulled out her tablet, projecting data onto the screen beside Sarah's presentation. Look at these numbers. With the money planned for Mars missions, we could deploy solar and wind energy systems across developing nations. We could fund carbon capture technology. We could restore rainforests and rebuild coral reefs. We could save millions of lives right now, not in some theoretical future. The tension was palpable. These weren't politicians or business people arguing about profits. These were scientists, people who had dedicated their lives to understanding the universe, and they were genuinely torn between their dreams and their responsibilities. Bill Nye raised his hands, asking for quiet. The room gradually settled. I hear all of you. I really do. And I think the truth is uncomfortable for everyone in this room, including me. We want Mars. We want the adventure, the discovery, the glory of being the first humans on another planet. It's romantic. It's inspiring. It makes us feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves. He turned to Sarah directly, his voice gentler now. Sarah, I can't imagine your pain. Losing your daughter is every parent's worst nightmare, and you're right to ask these hard questions. But let me ask you something, and please know I'm not trying to be cruel. If we do go to Mars, and we develop new medical technologies in the process, technologies that might have saved Maya, would that change your perspective? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Her hands gripped the podium so hard her knuckles turned white. Don't you dare, she whispered. Then louder, don't you dare use my daughter to justify this. I'm not, Bill said, stepping closer, his own eyes glistening. I promise you, I'm not. I'm asking you to think about all the other Mayas out there, all the children who might benefit from the innovations we create, not as a justification for anything, but as a consideration, as a factor in this impossible equation we're trying to solve. The room held its breath. The emotional weight was crushing. Sarah wiped her eyes, struggling to maintain composure. You want to know what I really think? I think we're brilliant at solving complicated problems far away and terrible at solving simple problems right here. We can figure out how to land a rover on Mars using a sky crane and supersonic parachutes. But we can't figure out how to distribute food to hungry people. We can plan missions to other planets, but we can't plan sustainable cities on this one. We can split atoms and map the human genome, but we can't provide clean water to everyone who needs it. Her voice broke. My daughter died because we prioritize the impressive over the important. Because billion-dollar Mars rovers get more attention than $1,000 medical treatments. Because we'd rather be heroes in space than heroes at home. The silence that followed was deafening. Bill Nye looked at the floor, then back up at Sarah. You're not wrong. You're really not. Humans are weird that way. We're better at reaching for the stars than taking care of each other. We'll spend billions to put footprints on Mars, but we won't spend millions to house the homeless. It's a flaw in our species. A fundamental disconnect between our capabilities and our priorities. He turned to address the entire audience. But maybe, just maybe, the inspiration from reaching for Mars could motivate us to do both. Maybe the same spirit that drives us to explore other worlds could drive us to fix this one, not as an excuse, not as a justification, but as a catalyst. A young engineer named Marcus stood up, his voice thick with emotion. I joined NASA because I want to be part of something bigger than myself. I want to look back on my life and say I helped humanity become a spacefaring species. But listening to this debate, I realize I've been selfish. I wanted the glory of Mars without thinking about the cost, without thinking about people like Maya. He looked around at his colleagues. How many of us are here because we want to be remembered, because we want to be the ones who made history? Be honest. Dozens of hands slowly rose. The admission hung in the air, uncomfortable and raw. Dr. Okonkwo spoke again, her voice softer now, but no less urgent. I don't want to kill anyone's dreams. I really don't. I grew up watching Star Trek too. I love the idea of exploration. But we need a priority list, and we need to be honest about it. Climate change isn't just first on that list. Right now, it's the only thing on the list that matters. Because if we don't solve it, there won't be anyone left to go to Mars. There won't be anyone left at all. Bill Nye nodded slowly. So here's what I propose, and I want everyone to really listen. We don't cancel Mars. We don't abandon the dream. But we fundamentally change our approach. He began pacing, his mind clearly working the problem in real time. Every Mars technology must have a direct, immediate Earth application, not a theoretical one, not a maybe someday one, a right-now application. Every dollar spent must be justified by how it helps people today, not tomorrow. We make Mars missions a catalyst for solving Earth problems, not an escape from them. We create a new model for space exploration, one that's grounded in terrestrial responsibility. Sarah considered this, her scientific mind working through the implications. That sounds reasonable in theory. But who decides? Who makes sure we're actually helping people, and not just paying lip service while we pursue our space fantasies? Who holds us accountable? We do, Bill said simply. Everyone in this room. We hold ourselves accountable. We demand radical transparency. We make sure every press release about Mars includes a detailed section on how that specific research helps Earth. We turn space exploration into a tool for planetary salvation, not an escape fantasy. Before anyone could respond, the auditorium doors burst open. A young woman ran in, her face flushed, clutching a tablet. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she gasped, "but you all need to see this. Right now." The main screen flickered and changed. A news broadcast appeared. The anchor's face was grave. "Breaking news from the Amazon rainforest. What scientists are calling a catastrophic tipping point has been reached. Massive sections of the rainforest have begun releasing more carbon than they absorb. Climate models are being revised as we speak. The timeline for action has just become much, much shorter." The room exploded into chaos. Scientists grabbed their phones. Others crowded around tablets, pulling up data. The abstract debate about Mars had just become horrifyingly concrete. Dr. Okonkwo's face had gone pale. "This is it. This is what we've been warning about. Once the Amazon flips from carbon sink to carbon source, the feedback loops accelerate. We might have 5 years now, maybe less." Bill Nye stood frozen, the weight of the moment crushing down on everyone. He looked at Sarah, then at the audience, then back at the screen showing images of burning rainforest. "This changes everything," he said quietly. A wealthy tech entrepreneur in the back of the auditorium stood up. His name was David Park, and his company had invested billions in private space ventures. "I've been sitting here listening to this debate, and I've been defensive," he admitted. "I've poured $2 billion into Mars missions because I believed in the dream, because I wanted to be part of history. But I'm looking at that screen, and I'm realizing something. History doesn't give a damn about my ego. History cares about what we do in moments like this." He pulled out his phone, his fingers flying across the screen. "I'm redirecting half my space funding, $1 billion, to immediate climate action, carbon capture, renewable energy, rainforest restoration. Whatever the scientists say will make the biggest impact right now." The room erupted in gasps. Dr. Okonkwo's hands flew to her mouth. $1 billion? Do you understand what we could do with that? We could fund 100 critical projects. We could accelerate solutions by years. David nodded. "But I have a condition. The space community and the climate community stop working in silos. You share knowledge. You collaborate. Space engineers help design carbon capture systems. Climate scientists help guide space research toward Earth-beneficial goals. No more turf wars. No more competition for funding. We work together or we die separately." Other business leaders in the audience began standing. One by one, they announced redirected funding. Not all of their space investments, but significant portions. The energy in the room had shifted from confrontational to collaborative, driven by the urgent reality flashing on the screen. Bill Nye felt tears streaming down his face. He didn't bother to wipe them away. "This," he said, his voice shaking with emotion, "this is what I hope will happen, not because of a disaster, but this level of cooperation, this willingness to change." He turned to Sarah. "You did this. Your courage to speak up, to challenge us, to make us face uncomfortable truths. This is your daughter's legacy." Sarah was crying too, but there was something different in her expression now. Not quite hope, but perhaps the beginning of it. "Maya loved the stars," she said softly. She had glow-in-the-dark stars all over her bedroom ceiling. She'd lie there at night, making up stories about aliens and space explorers. She would have wanted us to go to Mars someday, but she would have wanted us to save Earth first. The room full of scientists, engineers, entrepreneurs, and dreamers stood in silence, united by grief and purpose. Bill Nye took a deep breath. "So here's what we do. We create a new framework. The Earth-Mars Initiative. Phase 1. Immediate climate action. All hands on deck. We take the incredible problem-solving abilities in this room, and we throw them at the climate crisis with everything we've got. We set a target. Stabilize Earth's climate within 10 years. He started pacing again, the ideas flowing. Phase 2. Sustainable Mars exploration. Once we've proven we can save our own planet, Once we've demonstrated that we're responsible stewards of Earth, then we go to Mars, not as refugees, not as escapees, but as representatives of a species that solved its greatest challenge. We go to Mars as scientists who learn how to terraform Earth back to health, and we use that knowledge to understand the universe better. Dr. Rodriguez, the NASA engineer, stood up. I can work with that. In fact, I want to work with that. We've been developing life support systems for Mars. Those same systems could revolutionize sustainable living in harsh environments here, desert communities, polar regions. We could deploy them now. Others began adding ideas. The conversation that had been a debate became a brainstorming session, a planning meeting, a declaration of shared purpose. But then an older scientist in the back stood up. Her badge identified her as Dr. Elizabeth Frost, a veteran astronomer. "I've been quiet this whole time," she said, her voice carrying the weight of decades, "because I've been thinking, and I have something to say that's going to be unpopular." The room fell silent again. "I'm 82 years old. I've spent 60 years studying the cosmos, and I need to tell you all something that nobody wants to hear. We might not make it. We might do everything right, redirect all the funding, focus everything on Earth, and we still might not make it. Climate change might be too far gone. The feedback loops might be irreversible." People started to protest, but she held up her hand. "Let me finish. If that happens, if Earth becomes uninhabitable despite our best efforts, we need a backup. We need people on Mars. Not many, not a mass exodus, but enough to preserve human knowledge and civilization, insurance, a seed bank for humanity." The room erupted again. Half the people were nodding in agreement. Half were shaking their heads vehemently. Sarah felt her chest tightening. "So your solution is to accept defeat before we even try?" "No," Dr. Frost said firmly. "My solution is to do both, but smartly. Put 90% of our resources into saving Earth, but put 10% into a minimal Mars presence, just enough to ensure that if the worst happens, humanity doesn't end, not because Earth doesn't matter, because it matters more than anything. So much that we can't risk putting all our eggs in one basket, even if that basket is our home." Bill Nye rubbed his temples. "That's actually not an unreasonable position. I hate it, but it's not unreasonable." He looked at Sarah. "What do you think?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment. She thought about Maya, about her daughter's glow-in-the-dark stars, about her fierce determination to become an astronaut even while battling her disease. "I think," she said slowly, "that Maya would say we should fight like hell to save Earth. Give it everything we have, every ounce of energy, every brilliant mind, every dollar we can scrape together. But she'd also say we should keep dreaming, keep reaching, because hope matters. Because giving up on Mars entirely might mean giving up on the part of ourselves that refuses to accept limitations." She paused, gathering her thoughts. 90-10 sounds right. 90% to Earth, 10% to Mars. But that 10% has to be humble, small, a research station, not a colony. Scientists, not settlers. And every single discovery they make up there has to immediately benefit us down here. Bill Nye smiled through his tears. "Then we have a plan." The summit continued late into the night. Committees formed. Budgets were drafted. The Earth-Mars initiative took shape, with hard targets and accountability measures. Phone calls were made to governments and agencies around the world. By dawn, a new framework existed. Not perfect, not guaranteed to succeed, but honest, real, grounded in both hope and reality. 3 months later, Sarah stood in a climate research facility in Costa Rica. Around her, engineers from NASA were installing an advanced atmospheric monitoring system that had been developed for Mars missions. The same technology that would have tracked Martian dust storms was now tracking Earth's changing weather patterns with unprecedented precision. Bill Nye was there too, filming a special series about the Earth-Mars initiative. He watched as the system came online, feeding real-time data to climate scientists worldwide. "How does it feel?" he asked Sarah. She watched the data flowing across the screens. "Like, we're finally asking the right questions. Not whether we should go to Mars, but what kind of species we want to be. what values we want to represent. Bill nodded. I got a letter yesterday from that aerospace engineering student, the one who asked if her dreams were wrong. She's changed her focus to sustainable habitat design. Says she's going to create living systems that work on Earth first, then adapt them for Mars. She's calling it learning to walk before we run. Sarah smiled. That's perfect. They walked outside into the thick humidity of the rainforest. Around them, restoration efforts were underway. Seedlings planted with funding redirected from space programs. Not all of the space programs. Just enough. The 10% solution. Bill looked up at the sky. It was midday, so no stars were visible, but he knew they were there. We'll get to Mars someday, he said. I really believe that. But when we do, we'll go as a species that proved it could save itself. We'll plant our flag on Martian soil, knowing that we didn't run away from our problems. We solved them. Sarah looked up too. Maya would like that. She liked knowing that her story mattered, that it changed something. It changed everything, Bill said softly. Above them, invisible in the daylight, Mars continued its ancient orbit, red and patient, waiting for humanity to be ready. Not ready with technology, not ready with rockets, ready with wisdom, ready with the knowledge that exploring other worlds begins with respecting our own. The debate about whether we should go to Mars will never truly end. It's the wrong question anyway. The right question is, what do we need to do right here, right now, to earn the privilege of going? What kind of civilization do we need to build on Earth before we try to build one on Mars? In a small hospital room in Houston, a child with the same genetic disorder that killed Maya received a treatment funded by money redirected from space programs, a treatment developed using technology originally designed for monitoring astronaut health on long space missions. Her name was Emma. She was 9 years old, and she was going to live. When Emma was released from the hospital weeks later, her parents bought her a gift, a telescope, not an expensive one, just good enough to see the planets. That night, Emma pointed at the sky, past Venus, past Jupiter, until she found a small red dot. Is that really Mars? She asked her father. That's really Mars, he confirmed. It's so far away. It is, but you know what? Someday people will go there, maybe even in your lifetime. Emma kept her eye pressed to the telescope. Will they come back? Her father smiled. Oh, yes, they'll definitely come back, because Earth will always be home. No matter how far we go, we always come home. Inside the house, Emma's mother was reading an article on her tablet. It was about Dr. Sarah Chun and Bill Nye, about the Earth-Mars Initiative, about how the conversation around space exploration had fundamentally changed. At the bottom of the article was a quote from Bill Nye that was already becoming famous. The question was never whether we should go to Mars. The question was whether we're worthy of going to Mars. And the only way to prove we're worthy is to show that we can take care of the planet we already have. Because any species that can't save its own world has no business trying to colonize another. Emma came running inside, her face flushed with excitement. I want to be an astronaut when I grow up, she announced. Her parents exchanged a look full of gratitude that their daughter had a future to dream about. Then you should be an astronaut, her mother said. But first, help us take care of Earth. Deal, Emma said, grinning. Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance. Mars glowed softly in the darkness, not going anywhere, patient as stone, waiting for humanity to grow up. And down here on Earth, in laboratories and research stations, in hospitals and universities, in rainforests and cities, people were working, not to escape to Mars, but to earn the right to visit it. Because the answer to should we really go to Mars isn't yes or no.